So at present, we can look at Congolese forces sort of relying on two forms of partnership to counter ISCAP. The first, bilateral cooperation with the Ugandan military, and then second, through alliances with various local armed groups. The Ugandan military partnership has by far been the most prolific in the fight against ISCAP, and its current form of cooperation began in the late part of 2021 with the launch of Operation Shuja. At first, this was really just a few hundred Ugandan soldiers, but it quickly grew, and over the past few years, it's kind of ranged month to month between 2,000 and 4,000 soldiers on Congolese soil. But in early 2025, kind of amidst the M23 rapid expansion of territorial control, Uganda reinforced that, and we now have about 5,000 troops within DRC. Much of these operations over the past few years have focused on Beni territory of North Kivu and then Irumu territory of Ituri. But 2024 marked a very broad expansion for Uganda within DRC and really pushed ISCAP westward, creating this sort of effective buffer zone away from the Ugandan border and pushing ISCAP westward. In 2025, we have noticed a slight increase in the number of events within that buffer zone. Most of those have occurred in the Ruwenzori Mountains, which are densely forested and quite rugged, so rather difficult for soldiers to keep ISCAP out of that area. But in general, we have noticed this sort of westward movement, and we've even seen ISCAP move into areas such as Chopo province, which is beyond Uganda's mandate. With all of this, the UPDF have supported the Congolese military, not just through ground operations, but also quite a lot with artillery and airstrikes. Even earlier this year, we saw kind of the way this works as the Ugandan military carried out this 3-day bombardment ahead of ground operations in order to overtake ISCAP's Apakweng camp in Irumu. But the political dynamics with Uganda are a bit fragile. Uganda aims to maintain both a positive relationship with Rwanda as well as with DRC. And that's quite a delicate sort of balancing act right now, as Rwanda backs the M23, while Uganda is also aligned with Congo in the ISCAP operations. So for this, Kampala is definitely walking a very fine line. Turning now to partnerships with local armed groups, while not as prolific in terms of the operations against ISCAP, this practice is really nothing new in DRC. I mean, we could look even at the Congolese military as sort of this loose coalition of armed groups in itself. So the alliance with various local militias and encouragement of self-defense groups is quite a long-standing practice. But what we can look to is in 2024, the military much more openly encouraged communities to work with and build alliances with armed groups, as well as form new local self-defense groups to protect themselves against ISCAP incursions. Much of that was through the recognition that the Congolese military was stretched thin with the M23 rebellion going on. And we also saw this echoed the sentiment to make these alliances from President Museveni of Uganda, who thought that this would be a helpful way to consolidate gains that the Ugandan military was making. Many of these armed groups are under the broad alliance of the Wazalendo, but we've also seen other self-defense groups emerge. And these have been fairly widespread across the territory where ISCAP operates, in the Ituri, North Kivu, and in Chopo so far in 2025. So I think as we see ISCAP move westward out of the sort of mandate of the UPDF, we may see more communities take up arms or form these sort of alliances. The challenge that we have is that these groups often lack the professional training or equipment, instead relying on rather basic rifles or machetes, as well as their advantage of local kind of knowledge of the terrain. But these also come with certain political risks. The groups that the Congolese military is aligning with and sort of deferring operations to sometimes don't work well together. Commonly, the Congolese military works both with the NDCR as well as with the FDLR, but those two groups commonly will contest one another. So these overlapping alliances are not always easy and have created friction between groups. So with that, I think I can hand over to Peter to look at IS in Mozambique.
I'm just going to pop in here 1 second, Vlad, taking some prerogative as a moderator to ask some pretty basic questions about ISCAP, which is that, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the smaller IS groups within the continent at large. And can you explain how it came about in general, given that it's not outside of the Rwenzori Mountains, there doesn't seem to be a particularly active base of potential recruitment there either. So just the origin story there as a new actor in an already extremely complex and conflicted environment.
Yeah, the group really maybe is unique in some ways in that it developed as a Ugandan rebel movement with sort of leaders in the 1980s and early 1990s coming together within Uganda, eventually being expelled and kind of settling within kind of the Beni area of Eastern DRC as the Allied Democratic Forces, the ADF. So the group had carried out different forms of violence and allied with various groups through the Congo wars, but maintained different kind of ideologies as a Ugandan rebel group and kind of focusing on carrying out violence against the regime in Uganda. And then later, sort of around 2017, 18, and 19, we saw much more alignment with the Islamic State, a change of leadership, which then kind of brings us more to the current kind of ideological underpinnings of ISCAP that emerged from the ADF.
Perfect. Thanks very much. It's nice to understand that in context of the already troubled region.